You got like the Armenian mob, the Mexican mob, the Korean mob, right? But you know what I'm most afraid of? It's the Russian mob. Because even regular Russian people are fucking scary. Like my doctor, he's Russian, and I went in there with a broken leg just hurting, and he looks down at my leg and he goes, broken leg? So? Use other leg. When I was a boy in Soviet Union, I break both arms and both legs. I roll downhill to go to school. In the snow. I become like giant snowball. But my middle leg was fine. I bear many children. You know what I just realized? My Russian accent fucking sucks. It sounded like more like if Arnold Schwarzenegger was Chinese or something.
Good morning. It's Monday, Cold War Monday, January the 19th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the Cold War. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Maria, then Stu.
Forum, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Plus, she will be sitting down with President Trump in Davos on Thursday. Don't miss it. First, though, some final thoughts from our all-star panel. Liz.
I hope that President Trump takes advantage of his very, very big public moment in Davos to de-escalate the fight with the EU over Greenland. There are other ways to secure America's interests in Greenland. I hope that in conversations with foreign leaders, he arrives at a better path, because right now, I just think for a whole host of reasons, this is the wrong way to go.
Yeah, and certainly markets don't like it, as we can see on our screen. Ryan?
Yeah, despite all the uncertainty, look, the underlying economic data is fantastic, right? We're going to see people getting tax refunds. Labor market looks strong to me. GDP growth is heating up. We haven't seen a 5% print in the last 20 years. That's unbelievable financial growth. So I would say here, hard not to be bullish on the economy, and it's a pleasure with you two ladies today.
We've had a lot of news breaking. Obviously, there's going to be so much more emphasis on the Davos Economic Forum this week. All right, Ryan Payne, Liz Peek, thank you. Liz Peek.
Not weak.
Stuart, help me. Liz, I can't even speak.
Don't worry about it, Cheryl. I'm Stuart. Good morning, Cheryl, and good morning, everyone. You know, you're waking up to a new trade war. President Trump threatens 8 NATO allies with tariffs if they don't accept American control of Greenland. Well, the Europeans are absolutely furious. The French threaten a draconian trade bazooka in retaliation. Britain's Prime Minister says, he comes right out with it, and he says the tariffs are totally wrong, his words. The EU has called a summit for this week. They have to decide either to negotiate with Trump or retaliate. The markets are closed today for observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but trading in futures is open. Investors don't like any mention of a trade war. European markets are open and they are lower, but Wall Street, that's down too. Futures, look at them. Dow off about 350, a bigger percentage loss for the NASDAQ. This is pre-market, of course, to open up again tomorrow. 357 points down. That's better than 1% lower. Oil, I'm looking at $58 a barrel this morning, just popped up to 59. Gas is back at $2.82 a gallon for regular. The price of gold, $4,671 an ounce. It's up today. On the show, the president heads to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week. He's taking a huge delegation. Rubio, Bessent, Lutnick, Witkoff, they'll all be there. There will be talks with the Europeans about Greenland and tariffs, but it will be the Trump show. He's setting the world agenda. Back home, a new low for those demonstrators opposing ICE in Minnesota. They invaded a church, disrupting the service. One of the demonstrators harangued the congregation, calling them comfortable white people with nice jewelry who should be supporting the Somalis. My opinion, they've crossed a line. You don't disrupt a church service, and when you do, you lose public support. Yes, it's Monday, January the 19th, 2026, the day we honor the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And that was Varney and Company. And one of the things that I just woke up to today was the overall dynamic of shows like Varney and Company, almost all news shows, whether CNN, MSNBC, Fox, or whoever, is that they have a tendency to ignore their audience. In this particular case, he does, in the very beginning, he'll give all the headlines of what's going on, but the rest of his show, he pretends his audience doesn't exist. It's just him talking to other people. We get to eavesdrop on his conversations with other people. And I think it's a rather bold and counterintuitive way of getting ratings. Hey, Mr. Varney, get some good ratings by ignoring your audience. Fascinating. Back and nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
For most people, the easiest thing in the world to do is to give up and to quit. The easiest thing in the world to do is to complain. Don't take no effort. The easiest thing in the world to do is to be negative. It takes work to have a perspective that see things on the right side of the coin. You got to fight for that. It takes work to show up every single day, and when things are not playing in our favor, to say, you know what, man, it might not playing in my favor right now, but I'm going to still show up, and I'm going to give everything I got to it because I value what I'm a part of. It takes work to have the right perspective, and I'm a firm believer that perspective drives performance every day of the week.
That ain't got nothing to do with talent. That's just got everything to do with effort. Nothing else. And the only thing that's kept me around is my effort. Because I wasn't a number one recruit. I wasn't a number one linebacker. I wasn't even a media guy. All I ever knew was effort will get me seen on tape. Effort will get me noticed to get to the league. Effort would one day take care of my mom and my kids. Effort, which is between you and you. Nobody else can give you effort. Effort is what's inside, man.
You're not going to be the best. You're not going to catch the best if you're not intentional and deliberate. And there are those of you in your space, and whatever you're trying to do, you don't even represent the best in your space, and you're still not giving 120. It doesn't matter if you're interested. It doesn't matter if you're somewhat committed. It only matters if you're fully committed. Where are you in that spectrum? Where would you place yourself? Am I interested in this? Committed to this? or am I fully committed to this? You can feel when somebody's not committed, when they're not all in, when they're not dedicated. And there's another level you get to when you go all in, when you do videos every single Monday and ain't nobody paying you. When you come to an engagement and you speak as if you're making the most you've ever made when you're not. When you get up at 6, when you don't have to. Effort is isolated. The reason why effort is isolated, because nobody can dictate it. Effort is 100% in the mind. No coach, no player, nobody else can make you run to the ball. Nobody else can make you finish the tackle. Nobody else can do it. When you finally figure it out, how to win real battles, it's found through fundamentals. That's what wins championships. That's what wins battles. Blocking, tackling, until they get tired. Because you don't know what tired feels like. Tired don't mean nothing. Tired is only in the mind. You tell yourself you're tired, you're going to be tired. I don't get tired. Nobody ain't got to convince me of what I do. I do what I do because I do what I do. Because I'm built from something. Because I'm pissed off for greatness. Because if you ain't pissed off for greatness, that means you're okay with being mediocre.
Starting with a little dream, like building your business and saying, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to talk to people and I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to be extraordinary. Because the days slip into weeks, the weeks slip into months, the months slip into years. Before you know it, 1 year's gone by. 5 years have gone by. Well, 1 year's going to go by anyway. Why not get there world class in this business, world class in your life?
Champions are focused on the goal. They don't have time to be doing stuff that's not going to help you toward the goal. So all the little social media, cut it off. Cut it off. Get off of it. Stop Netflix. Who are you watching? Watch you. Cut the TV off. It's going to be there. You got a job to do. That's what you're getting paid for. Have some pride. Cut off the TV, son. Cut that doggone football game up. It ain't doing nothing for you. They making millions, you not. More stuff comes to you when you execute, son. Do what you're supposed to do. You ain't no boy no more. The only thing you do for success, there's no discounts. It's sweat, it's blood, it's tears. There is no discount. You can't get 50% off. It's sweat, it's blood, it's tears. There are no shortcuts to success. Stop thinking there are. And stop wanting people to put you somewhere that you didn't earn. You can't be in love with the idea of success. You can't be in love with the results and not be in love with the work. You have to love the process. You have to love the daily grind. You have to love the lessons learned. You have to love the little victories. You have to love the experiences that the journey provides you. You have to love the relationships. You have to love the whole thing to produce the result that you are in love with. You gotta do a lot of shit that nobody ever sees or thanks you for or rewards you for a long time. And it's not just a 9-to-5 Monday through Friday effort. It's a fucking lifestyle. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week commitment. When I tell you to put forth effort, I'm talking about life and death. The effort that you put forth either is going to bring life to your finances, to your health. When you put forth effort, your money is going to look different when you put forth effort. You look different. And when you don't put forth that effort, it's death. I grant you that if you begin to work to develop your gifts, you develop a strong sense of happiness.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Cold War.
October 1959. 320 nautical miles northeast of Iceland. The North Atlantic rolls dark and heavy under a moonless sky. Swells driven by autumn storms that have battered the Greenland-Iceland-United Kingdom gap for 3 straight days. 200 feet below the surface, USS Amberjack hangs motionless in the thermal layer, her diesel engines silent, batteries providing just enough power to maintain depth and life support. Inside the control room, the air tastes of amine scrubber chemicals and the metallic tang of recycled atmosphere. Condensation beads on cold steel bulkheads, despite the best efforts of overworked ventilation systems. The overhead lights have been dimmed to preserve power. In the red glow of battle lanterns, 23 men work at their stations with the disciplined quiet of submariners who understand that sound is the difference between hunter and hunted. Second-class Petty Officer James Whitten has been on sonar watch for 6 hours and 14 minutes. His logbook records the monotonous litany of ocean background, distant merchant traffic transiting the Denmark Strait, biological noise from migrating whale pods, the rhythmic crash of surface wave action transmitted through hundreds of feet of seawater. Whitten wears the BQR-2B passive sonar headset with one ear cup slightly off-center, an old submariner's trick that allows him to hear both the hydrophone array and any urgent voice communication from the control room without removing the headset entirely. His eyes track the pale green waterfall display, watching for the vertical striations that would indicate propeller cavitation or machinery noise distinct from the ocean's natural symphony. At 0342 hours, something changes. A low-frequency mechanical rhythm appears in Whitten's headphones, faint but distinct, not biologics, not merchant traffic with its characteristic higher-pitched screw wash. This is deeper, more deliberate, with the regular cadence that speaks of military-grade propulsion. Whitten's hand moves to the gain control, increasing sensitivity on the bearing where the contact has appeared. The signal strengthens. Definite mechanical origin. Twin screws turning at approximately 90 revolutions per minute. Course approximately 270 degrees, heading west-southwest toward the gap. Speed estimated 7 knots. Depth approximately 150 feet, based on acoustic propagation characteristics. Whitten keys his communication circuit. His voice is calm, professionally neutral, betraying none of the adrenaline spike that comes with detecting what might be hostile contact. Con, sonar, new contact, designated Sierra 1, bearing 352 degrees. Twin screws, mechanical signature, consistent with submarine. Range indeterminate, signal strength moderate. Contact appears to be transiting westbound. In the control room, Commander Thomas Harper straightens from the chart table, where he has been reviewing the patrol orders that brought Amberjack to this exact position at this exact time. Harper is 41 years old, a career submariner who enlisted in 1936 and earned his commission during the war. He has commanded Amberjack for 26 months, long enough to know every quirk of her guppy-converted systems, long enough to trust his crew's competence implicitly. He crosses to the sonar station in 4 strides, his rubber-soled shoes making no sound on the deck plates. Harper does not immediately speak. He stands behind Whitten's station, watching the waterfall display, listening to the faint audio feed from the external speakers. 30 seconds of observation. Professional assessment. The signal is real. The bearing is stable. The acoustic characteristics match intelligence briefings. Harper studied during the pre-patrol briefing at Submarine Squadron 4 headquarters in Key West 3 weeks earlier. Soviet submarine, likely diesel-electric based on the machinery signature. The twin-screw configuration and the specific frequency range suggest a Zulu-class boat, possibly one of the 6 Zulu V variants that NATO intelligence suspects have been converted to carry ballistic missiles. Harper speaks quietly to his executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Robert Marsh, who has materialized at his elbow. If that's what I think it is, we just won the intelligence lottery. Get the crew to tracking stations. Silent routine. No active sonar under any circumstances. We're going to follow this contact and see where he's going. The decision Harper has just made carries implications that extend far beyond Amberjack's pressure hull. The year is 1959, 14 years into the Cold War, 4 years after the Geneva summit had briefly promised détente, 2 years after Sputnik had shocked America into recognizing Soviet technological capability. The strategic landscape has shifted with terrifying speed. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev has publicly boasted that the Soviet Union is producing missiles like sausages, threatening to bury capitalism through superior industrial production. American intelligence agencies are desperate for hard information about Soviet naval capabilities, particularly regarding submarine-launched ballistic missiles that could strike American coastal cities with virtually no warning. The GIUK Gap, the choke point between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom, represents the most critical defensive line in the Atlantic. Any Soviet submarine transiting from Northern Fleet bases to the open Atlantic must pass through this relatively narrow corridor. American and NATO forces maintain persistent surveillance using a combination of long-range patrol aircraft, surface vessels, submarine patrols, and classified hydrophone arrays planted on the ocean floor. The mission is simple in concept, enormously complex in execution. Detect Soviet submarines attempting Atlantic transit, track them for as long as possible to gather intelligence on capabilities and operating patterns, photograph them when opportunities arise, and under no circumstances allow the Soviets to know they have been detected. USS Amberjack is perfectly positioned for exactly this mission, though her presence in the gap is not accidental. She is one of 52 American fleet submarines that have undergone guppy conversion between 1947 and 1963, transformed from World War II surface raiders into true underwater hunters, optimized for Cold War operations. The Guppy 2 modification that Amberjack received at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in 1947 had streamlined her hull, doubled her battery capacity from 252 cells to 504 cells, installed a snorkel system allowing diesel operation at periscope depth, and upgraded her sonar suite and fire control systems. The result is a submarine that can sustain 15 to 16 knots submerged for over an hour, or maintain slower speeds for days if necessary, all while generating far less acoustic signature than the first-generation nuclear submarines that are just beginning to enter service. Harper understands both the capabilities and the limitations of his boat, with the intimate knowledge that comes from 2 years of intensive operations. Amberjack can outrun most Soviet diesel-electric submarines in short sprints. Her streamlined guppy hull generates significantly less flow noise than traditional fleet boat configurations. When running on batteries with diesel engines secured, she is quieter than USS Nautilus or any of the early nuclear boats whose reactor cooling pumps create constant broadband noise. But batteries are finite. At current load with main engines secured and minimal hotel services, Harper has perhaps 18 to 20 hours of battery endurance before he will be forced to snorkel and recharge, exposing a mast above the surface and risking detection by radar or visual observation. The decision calculus is brutal in its simplicity. If Harper commits to tracking this Soviet submarine, he is betting Amberjack's entire battery capacity on the intelligence value of the contact. If the Soviet boat is merely a patrol submarine conducting routine transit, the intelligence gain might not justify the operational risk. But if this is one of the Zulu V missile boats that NATO desperately wants to photograph and characterize, 18 hours of tracking could provide intelligence worth millions of dollars in Cold War currency. Harper makes his choice in the 30 seconds it takes to cross from the sonar station back to the chart table. He will track. He will follow this Soviet submarine for as long as batteries allow, or until the contact demonstrates capabilities that definitively identify it as a strategic asset. And he will do it without being detected, because detection would not only end the tracking mission, but would also inform the Soviets that American submarines are capable of trailing them undetected through their home waters. an intelligence loss, potentially more damaging than any gain from identification. The crew understands what is happening without requiring detailed explanation. Amberjack's officers and enlisted men have trained for exactly this scenario through countless exercises. They know the procedures for silent running, battery conservation, passive tracking, and the psychological discipline required to maintain operations for extended periods without surfacing or transmitting. They settle into their stations with the calm professionalism of men who have volunteered for submarine duty, precisely because it offers these moments: the silent hunt, the patient stalk, the invisible war fought in darkness where skill and determination matter more than brute technological superiority. Lieutenant Commander Marsh moves through the boat on silent routine, personally verifying that every piece of loose gear is secured, every unnecessary system is shut down, every potential noise source is eliminated. In the engine room, the massive Fairbanks Morse diesel engines sit cold and silent, their warmth gradually dissipating into the surrounding seawater. The motor room hums with the subdued whine of electric drive motors pulling current from the battery banks, spinning the single propeller at minimal revolutions designed to maintain steerage while minimizing cavitation noise. In the forward torpedo room, 6 Mark 14 torpedoes rest in their tubes, loaded and ready, but with firing solutions unentered, because Harper has no intention of shooting unless Amberjack faces imminent destruction. In the crew's mess, men who are not on watch lie in their bunks, trying to rest, but finding sleep difficult with the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness outside the hull, a Soviet submarine is moving through the same water. The galley is secured except for the coffee urn, which remains hot because submariners run on caffeine as much as they run on battery power. The smell of old coffee mixes with the ever-present odor of diesel fuel, hydraulic fluid, and the sharp chemical bite of the CO2 scrubbers working overtime to keep the atmosphere breathable. The tracking begins in earnest at 03:55 hours. Witten calls out bearing updates every 60 seconds as the Soviet submarine maintains steady course and speed. Harper positions Amberjack on a parallel course offset by approximately 4,000 yards, close enough for solid sonar contact, but far enough to minimize the risk of counter-detection if the Soviet sonarman is competent. The American boat settles into what submariners call the trail position, following slightly behind and to the side of the target, using the target's own noise to mask any sounds Amberjack might generate. The mathematics of underwater pursuit are unforgiving. Sound travels at approximately 1,500 meters per second in seawater, but the speed varies with temperature, salinity, and pressure. The seasonal thermal layer at 150 feet acts as a partial acoustic barrier, bending sound waves in ways that can either help or hinder detection, depending on the geometry of the pursuit. Harper keeps Amberjack slightly below the thermal layer, using it to shield his boat from any upward-looking sonar the Soviet submarine might employ, while still maintaining good signal strength on the downward propagating noise from the target's machinery. For the first hour, the pursuit is almost routine. The Soviet boat shows no indication of awareness that it is being followed. The bearing drift is consistent with a submarine on a planned navigation track, probably following a pre-briefed route through the gap designed to minimize exposure to known NATO surveillance assets. The contact maintains 7 knots, a speed that suggests battery conservation rather than urgency. This supports Harper's assessment that the Soviet captain believes himself undetected and is conducting a standard transit rather than an emergency run. Harper uses this stable period to establish baseline acoustic data. He has Witten document every characteristic of the target's sound signature, the blade rate of the propellers, the frequency of machinery vibrations, any harmonic overtones that might indicate specific equipment. This information will be valuable to American intelligence, even if visual identification later proves impossible. Each Soviet submarine has unique acoustic characteristics based on manufacturing tolerances, equipment installations, and maintenance history. Building a library of these signatures allows American forces to track individual boats across multiple deployments. At 0445 hours, 1 hour and 3 minutes into the pursuit, the first complication arises. A merchant ship appears on sonar, transiting north through the gap. The freighter's screws create a wall of noise that temporarily masks the Soviet submarine's signature. Witten loses the clean signal for 47 seconds, tracking only on bearing rate and historical data. Harper makes a quick decision, maintain course and speed, trusting Witten to reacquire contact when the merchant clears. The gamble pays off. As the freighter passes, the Soviet submarine's signature emerges from the noise exactly where Harper's dead reckoning predicted. But the incident highlights the fragility of the pursuit. Amberjack is tracking on passive sonar alone, which means she has no precise range to target. Harper knows the bearing, the direction to the Soviet boat, but the distance is estimated from signal strength and propagation characteristics. If the Soviet captain makes an unexpected maneuver during a period when Amberjack's sonar is masked by other noise, the American boat could lose contact permanently. The crew settles into the rhythm of extended operations. Watch sections rotate on a compressed schedule, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, which is exhausting but necessary to maintain alertness during the critical tracking mission. In the control room, Harper and Marsh trade off command responsibilities. One always present to make tactical decisions, while the other grabs brief rest periods in the tiny captain's cabin. Neither man sleeps deeply. The responsibility of command does not permit genuine rest during operations like this. By hour 2, the battery's state of charge has dropped to 87%. Harper updates his mental calculations. At current consumption rates, assuming no high-speed maneuvers are required, Amberjack can maintain pursuit for approximately 16 more hours before reaching minimum safe battery level. That minimum is not 0. Harper must reserve enough power to clear the area at high speed if detected, to reach a safe snorkeling position, and to defend the boat if attacked. Running batteries to absolute exhaustion would be suicidal. At 0520 hours, 4 hours and 38 minutes into the tracking mission, the character of the pursuit changes dramatically. The Soviet submarine executes a sharp turn to port, changing course by 45 degrees and simultaneously increasing speed to approximately 12 knots. The maneuver is abrupt enough that it cannot be explained by normal navigation. Either the Soviet captain is executing a pre-planned evasion route, or he has detected something that makes him suspicious. Witten's voice carries the first real tension since the tracking began. Con, sonar. Sierra 1 has altered course to port, new heading approximately 225 degrees. Speed increasing, estimate 12 knots. Blade rate increasing proportionally. Classify as possible evasive maneuver. Harper's jaw tightens. The decision tree has just become significantly more complex. If he orders Amberjack to follow the course change immediately, matching the Soviet maneuver, he risks confirming any suspicions the Soviet captain might have by creating a correlated movement that even a mediocre sonar man would recognize as evidence of a tail. Submarines do not randomly turn in the open ocean at the same moment unless they are following each other. But if Harper maintains current course and allows the bearing to drift, he will lose contact within 30 to 40 minutes as the Soviet boat opens range and disappears into the acoustic clutter of the North Atlantic. Harper chooses aggression masked by patience. He will match the Soviet course change, but not immediately. He will allow 90 seconds to elapse, enough time to break the temporal correlation between the Soviet maneuver and Amberjack's response, then execute his own turn to a pursuit course that will close the range slightly while maintaining the offset geometry that has worked so far. Helm, come right to heading 230 degrees. Make your speed 6 knots. Smooth turn, no rapid course changes. Make it look like normal navigation drift if anyone's listening. Harper's voice is steady, conveying none of the tension that comes with knowing this single maneuver might determine whether the mission succeeds or fails. Amberjack comes right in a gentle arc, her single propeller biting into the water with carefully controlled thrust. The helmsman uses minimal rudder angle to avoid creating flow noise across the control surfaces. In the sonar shack, Witten adjusts his tracking solution, compensating for own ship motion to maintain accurate bearing on the Soviet contact. The relative motion problem, determining the true course and speed of a target when your own platform is also moving, is one of the fundamental challenges of submarine warfare. The next 10 minutes are the longest of Harper's career. If the Soviet boat executes another radical maneuver, it will confirm that their captain suspects pursuit and is actively trying to shake a tail. If the contact settles back into steady transit, Harper can breathe easier, knowing the turn had been routine evasion rather than response to definite detection. 8 minutes and 40 seconds after the Soviet course change, the contact steadies on heading 220 degrees and reduces speed back to 7 knots. Harper allows himself a controlled exhale. Routine evasion. The Soviet captain is following a pre-planned route designed to complicate any trailing solution, but he has not definitively detected amberjack. The hunt can continue. But the Soviet maneuver has consumed battery capacity at rates Harper had not planned for. The higher speed required to close range during the turn drew current from the batteries at nearly double the normal rate. 6 minutes at 6 knots instead of 4 knots might not sound significant, but in the brutal arithmetic of battery-powered submarine operations, those 6 minutes have cost Harper approximately 45 minutes of total endurance. His comfortable 18-hour estimate has just become 16 hours, and every subsequent maneuver will consume more of that dwindling margin. Before we continue this underwater chess game, take a moment to subscribe to Cold War Chronicles. We explore the hidden conflicts that shaped our world, uncovering the technology and tactics that kept superpowers locked in silent competition beneath the waves. The Soviet submarine continues westbound, settling back into what appears to be steady transit profile. Harper orders the crew to 4-hour watch rotations, allowing men to rest in shifts while maintaining full coverage of all essential stations. The sonar watch changes, with Petty Officer Second Class Michael Torres relieving Witten. The new sonarman settles into his headphones, studying the waterfall display, learning the specific acoustic signature of this particular Soviet boat, so he can detect the smallest change in operating profile. Torres is 23 years old, from San Diego, and has been a sonarman for 4 years. He has spent hundreds of hours in training simulators, learning to distinguish submarine signatures from biological noise, from geological sounds, from the complex acoustic environment of the ocean. But this is only his 3rd time tracking a real Soviet submarine, and the first time the contact has been held for more than a few hours. His hands are steady as he adjusts the game controls, but Harper can see the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes fix on the waterfall display with almost religious intensity. By hour 6, clear patterns are emerging in the Soviet submarine's behavior. The boat maintains course and speed with almost metronomic consistency, suggesting either very precise navigation or possibly autopilot control of steering and propulsion. Every 90 minutes, almost to the minute, the contact executes a minor course change of 5 to 10 degrees, zigzagging in a pattern that would complicate any fire control solution, while allowing the Soviet sonarman to clear baffles, the blind spot directly astern, where the submarine's own propeller noise masks incoming signals. Harper uses these predictable maneuvers to his advantage, timing amberjack's own course adjustments to occur during the Soviet zigs and zags, when any sound amberjack generates will be masked by the target's own machinery transients. It is submarine hide-and-seek played at the highest level of professional competence, a game where the penalty for losing is not embarrassment, but potential international incident and the loss of intelligence capability that has taken years to develop. The hours accumulate with the slow inexorability of battery drain. 6 hours becomes 7. 7 becomes 8. The crew settles deeper into the rhythm of extended submerged operations. Minimal movement, quiet conversation conducted in whispers, the constant background hum of ventilation fans struggling to circulate air that grows increasingly stale despite the best efforts of the CO2 scrubbers. The temperature in the boat rises slowly as body heat from 23 men accumulates in the confined spaces, and the cooling systems work to balance thermal signature against the need to remove heat from the interior. In the galley, the cook prepares sandwiches in silence, avoiding the clatter of metal utensils that could transmit through the hull into the water. The menu is cold cuts and bread, nothing that requires cooking or generates food odors that would make the already marginal air quality worse. Men eat at their stations, maintaining watch discipline, even as fatigue begins to accumulate from the extended period of heightened alertness. Coffee consumption increases. The head sees constant quiet traffic as the crew processes the coffee and the drinking water they consume to stay hydrated in the warm, dry air. By hour 9, Harper faces his first serious fatigue management problem. Lieutenant Commander Marsh reports that 2 members of the engineering watch are showing signs of exhaustion, slower reaction times, minor errors in logging procedures. Harper makes the decision to pull them off watch early and replace them with men who have had more recent rest. This reduces his reserve, manpower, the pool of fresh crew he can draw on if the pursuit extends beyond 12 hours. But immediate performance matters more than theoretical future needs. The battery state of charge has dropped to 62%. Harper updates his calculations again. At current drain rates, factoring in the reserve power he must maintain for contingencies, Amberjack has approximately 7 more hours of tracking capability before he will be forced to break off contact and proceed to snorkeling depth regardless of tactical situation. 7 hours might be enough, or it might not. Everything depends on whether the Soviet submarine surfaces or continues this steady underwater transit. At hour 10, Torres reports a subtle change in the target's acoustic signature. Con, sonar. Sierra 1, showing slight reduction in machinery noise. Estimate possible reduction in hotel electrical load. Could indicate they're securing non-essential systems. Harper considers the implications. If the Soviet submarine is reducing electrical consumption, it suggests their captain is also managing battery endurance, which means the Soviet boat is also diesel-electric rather than nuclear-powered. This supports the Zulu-class identification. But it also means both submarines are now in a race against battery depletion. Whichever boat runs out of power first will be forced to surface or snorkel, exposing itself to detection. Harper has bet that the Soviet boat will reach that point first, but there is no guarantee. The pursuit continues through hour 11 with the steady, grinding tension of a marathon rather than a sprint. Harper stands at the chart table, plotting estimated positions based on dead reckoning navigation. Without the ability to surface for star sights or radio navigation fixes, Amberjack's position is approximate at best. The inertial navigation system, a complex gyroscope array, drifts by approximately 1 nautical mile for every 8 hours of submerged operations. After 11 hours, Harper's position uncertainty is nearly 1.5 miles in any direction. At hour 11 and 42 minutes, the Soviet submarine's behavior changes again in a way that sends Harper's tactical assessment into immediate recalculation. The steady 7-knot transit speed drops to 4 knots. The contact descends from 150 feet to 230 feet, dropping below the seasonal thermal layer into colder, denser water, where acoustic propagation characteristics change dramatically. Torres reports the depth change immediately, his voice betraying slight concern at the tactical implications. Harper understands what is happening. The Soviet captain is either conducting a pre-planned passive sonar search, slowing down and going deep to minimize own-ship noise while listening for any trailing contacts, or he has decided to lie quiet and see if anyone is following close enough to be detected during the slowdown. Either way, it is a tactical challenge that requires careful response. Harper orders Amberjack to match the depth change but maintain slightly higher speed, 5 knots instead of 4. This will gradually close the range over the next hour, but the closure rate will be slow enough that it should not create an obvious sonar signature. Make your depth 230 feet. Maintain current course. Reduce speed to 5 knots. Slow deceleration over 2 minutes. I want this to look like natural drift, not a tactical maneuver. Amberjack descends slowly, the hull groaning slightly as the external pressure increases. At 230 feet, the pressure is approximately 100 pounds per square inch, well within the submarine's test depth. but enough that the crew can hear the subtle sounds of the pressure hull adjusting to the load. The temperature drops as they enter colder water. Condensation on the bulkheads increases. For 2 hours, hours 12 through 14 of the pursuit, both submarines move slowly through the deep Atlantic, engaged in a silent battle of nerves and technical competence. The Soviet sonarman is undoubtedly listening, searching for any anomaly in the ocean background that would indicate a trailing contact. Torres is doing the same, monitoring the Soviet boat while simultaneously listening for any indication that the Soviets have detected American presence. The tension in Amberjack's control room is physical, a weight that presses down on every man present. Harper stands at the chart table, hands flat on the navigation charts, staring at the plot without really seeing it. His mind is running through contingency plans. Marsh monitors the battery status, watching the indicators drop with mathematical inevitability. 54%, 52%, 50%. At hour 13, Harper authorizes a brief meal service, sandwiches and coffee delivered to all watch stations. Men eat mechanically, fuel for bodies that are running on adrenaline and caffeine. The cook reports that fresh water consumption has been higher than planned. If the pursuit extends beyond 16 hours, they may need to reduce water rations. Harper notes this but does not act on it yet. Water is a problem for tomorrow. Today's problem is staying undetected long enough to identify the target. At hour 14 and 27 minutes, the tactical picture changes with sudden, dramatic clarity. Torres reports contact ascent. Con, sonar, Sierra 1 ascending, current depth approximately 190 feet and shoaling. Rate of ascent consistent with controlled rise to periscope depth. This is it, the moment Harper has been waiting for. If the Soviet boat is coming to periscope depth, it almost certainly intends to surface or at minimum raise a snorkel to charge batteries. Either way, it will be vulnerable, exposed, potentially photographable if Harper can position Amberjack correctly. But the opportunity comes with risk. Periscope depth means shallow water, where sound, propagation is different, where the risk of visual detection is much higher, where a single mistake could expose Amberjack to counterattack. Harper moves to the periscope well, already planning the observation approach. He will bring Amberjack shallow, trailing the Soviet boat by approximately 2,000 yards, close enough for optical observation through the periscope, but far enough to avoid visual detection if the Soviet lookouts are competent. He will raise the periscope for minimum time, 30 seconds maximum, taking photographs quickly before dropping the scope and going deep to avoid counter-detection. Make your depth 80 feet. Slow rise. Maintain current speed. Prepare to come to periscope depth on my command. Photography team to control room with the periscope camera mounting. I want this on film before he knows we exist. The photography team consists of a second-class photographer's mate and his assistant, both carrying the bulky periscope camera adapter that allows standard 35mm film to be exposed through the periscope optics. The camera is already loaded with high-speed black and white film, the only type that will work in the low-light conditions of dawn observation. The photographer checks his equipment with practiced efficiency, film advance mechanism, shutter operation, lens focus ring. Amberjack rises slowly through the water column, ascending into the zone where grey dawn light penetrates from the surface, where periscope observation becomes possible, but where the risk of detection increases exponentially. Harper grips the periscope handles, waiting for the precise moment when Amberjack will be shallow enough for observation, but the Soviet boat will not yet have lookouts topside if it surfaces. Torres calls out depth readings: 150 feet, 120 feet, 100 feet, 90 feet, 85 feet. Depth 80 feet, sir. Trim satisfactory. The diving officer's report confirms Amberjack is holding steady at periscope depth. Sonar, what's the contact doing? Contact at periscope depth, bearing steady. No significant change in acoustic signature. Estimate range 2200 yards, based on signal strength. Harper does the mental geometry. 2,200 yards. Just over a nautical mile. At that range, the periscope optics will provide clear observation, even in marginal light conditions. But it also means Amberjack is close enough that any mistake will be immediately obvious to Soviet observers. At 0647 hours, 16 hours, and 5 minutes into the tracking mission, Harper gives the order. Up periscope, quick look, photograph, and down, make it fast. The periscope slides upward through its well with a soft hydraulic hiss. The massive tube rises through the pressure hull, through the sail structure, breaking the surface with minimal wake. Harper rotates the optics, scanning the bearing where sonar holds the Soviet contact. For 2 seconds, he sees nothing but grey ocean and greyer sky. Then, exactly where the solution predicted, the Soviet Zulu-class submarine is surfacing, water cascading off its hull as it blows ballast tanks and rises into the cold Atlantic dawn. Through the periscope optics, in perfect morning light filtered through low clouds, Harper sees exactly what NATO intelligence has been searching for. The Zulu-class hull is unmistakable. The characteristic double-hull construction, the tall sail structure, the diving planes mounted on the sail rather than the bow. But this is not a standard attack configuration. Integrated into the sail, visible even in the low morning light, are 2 vertical cylindrical structures that can only be missile launch tubes. The tubes are approximately 2 meters in diameter, with hinged covers that are currently closed. The configuration matches intelligence briefings Harper received about the Zulu V variant. 6 boats converted from standard attack submarines to carry SSN-4 SARC ballistic missiles. I have visual confirmation. Zulu-class, ballistic missile variant. 2 vertical launch tubes visible in the sail structure. Start photographing. The photographer beside Harper clicks the shutter in rapid sequence, the motor drive advancing film with a quiet mechanical whir. Each frame captures a different angle as Harper slowly rotates the periscope. Hull configuration, sail modifications, launch tube doors, equipment layouts visible on the deck, antenna arrays. Every photograph is intelligence gold, visual confirmation of capability that will allow Western analysts to build complete technical assessments of Soviet ballistic missile submarine design and deployment patterns. Harper allows himself 22 seconds of observation, longer than doctrine recommends, shorter than he wants. Through the periscope, he can see Soviet sailors emerging from the forward hatch, beginning the process of rigging the boat for surface running. None of them look toward Amberjack's periscope. The sea state is working in Harper's favor. 3-foot swells that make the small periscope wake virtually invisible against the natural wave pattern. Downscope. Make your depth 200 feet. Course 280, speed 8 knots. Silent routine. We're done here. The periscope retracts smoothly. Amberjack's bowplanes angle down, and the submarine slips back into the depths. Behind them, on the surface, the Soviet submarine crew goes about their battery charging operations, completely unaware that American eyes have documented their most sensitive capability from less than 2,000 yards distance. But the mission is not yet complete. Amberjack must escape the area, reach safe waters for snorkeling, charge her own depleted batteries, and transit back to Key West with the film that will prove what they have accomplished. Harper does not allow himself the luxury of celebration. If Soviet lookouts spotted Amberjack's periscope during those 22 seconds of observation, the Soviet captain will immediately radio for assistance. Soviet Naval Aviation Patrol aircraft could be overhead within 40 minutes. Sonar, report all contacts. I need to know everything in the water within 10 miles. Torres studies his display with renewed intensity. Con, sonar, Sierra 1 on the surface, bearing changing slowly left to right as we open range. Faint diesel engine noise indicates he's running one engine to charge batteries. No other contacts on passive sonar. Ocean background normal for this area. Harper calculates rapidly. The Soviet submarine remains on the surface, suggesting the observation went undetected. But Harper cannot assume safety. He must put distance between Amberjack and the Soviet boat, while conserving enough battery power to reach snorkeling depth in international waters. Navigator, plot a course to the nearest point where we can safely snorkel. I want us in international waters. away from known Soviet patrol patterns, with sufficient ocean depth to dive deep if we're compromised. The navigation officer spreads charts across the plotting table. Sir, recommend course 295 for 42 nautical miles. That puts us west of the Reykjanes Ridge in deep water. At current speed, approximately 5 hours transit time. 5 hours. Harper looks at the battery status indicators. Current state of charge is 41%. 5 hours at 8 knots will drain approximately 25%, leaving 16% when they reach the snorkeling position. That is cutting it extremely close. Reduce speed to 6 knots. That extends our transit time but improves our battery margin. Plot a track that keeps us below the thermal layer and away from major shipping lanes. The first hour of the escape transit passes without incident. Torres maintains sonar watch, monitoring for any indication that Soviet forces are searching for them. The ocean remains quiet, except for natural background sounds. The Soviet submarine they tracked for 16 hours has faded from sonar range, still on the surface charging batteries, apparently unaware of the American boat that documented their capabilities. At hour 17 of the overall mission, Harper faces a new concern. The air quality in Amberjack has degraded noticeably. The CO2 scrubbers are working at maximum capacity, but 17 hours of 23 men breathing in a sealed tube have elevated carbon dioxide levels to the point where crew members are reporting headaches and slight dizziness. Engineering, increase ventilation fan speed to maximum. I know it creates more noise, but we need to circulate the air more effectively. We're far enough from the contact that the additional noise is acceptable. By hour 18, Amberjack crosses into international waters according to the navigation plot. This provides a degree of legal protection. If detected now by Soviet forces, Amberjack can legitimately claim to be conducting routine operations in international waters. Prepare to come to snorkeling depth, up scope for visual observation, confirm clear surface, raise the snorkel, run one diesel engine at maximum charging rate, clear the interior atmosphere, then get back down to safe depth. Total time on snorkel, maximum 30 minutes. At 0847 hours, 18 hours, and 5 minutes after initial contact with the Soviet submarine, Harper gives the order. Make your depth 60 feet. Prepare to raise snorkel. Amberjack rises slowly toward the surface. At 60 feet, Harper raises the periscope for a careful visual sweep of the surrounding ocean. The dawn has given way to full morning, grey and overcast with low clouds. Visibility is approximately 3 miles. The sea is empty. No ships, no aircraft, no visible threats. Clear surface, raise the snorkel. The snorkel mast extends upward, breaking the surface with its distinctive twin pipe design. The head valve opens and the diesel engine starts with a deep, rumbling roar. The engine drives the main generator at full output, pumping electrical current into the depleted batteries. The interior fills with the smell of diesel exhaust, acrid, but also the smell of power being restored. Men breathe deeply despite the fumes, grateful for the fresh air displacing the stale atmosphere. At 15 minutes on snorkel, the batteries have climbed to 58% charge. Not full, but sufficient for tactical flexibility. The interior air quality has improved dramatically. Harper makes the decision to secure snorkeling and return to safe depth. Secure snorkeling, lower snorkel mast, make your depth 200 feet. Come right to course 300. Harper retires to his cabin for the first time in 18 hours. Before sleeping, he drafts a message that will be transmitted once Amberjack reaches waters where radio communication is safe. Mission successful, primary objective achieved, positive visual identification, photographic evidence obtained. Returning to base, no compromise. Amberjack sends. That message, once transmitted, will trigger a cascade of intelligence analysis. The film will be developed in secure facilities. Photographic interpreters will examine every frame. The analysis will inform NATO strategic planning for years. If this deep dive into Cold War submarine operations inspired you, please like this video, subscribe to Cold War Chronicles, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from, or if you have family who served in submarines during the Cold War. Every like and comment helps share these forgotten stories with more people who need to hear them. This is Cold War Chronicles. We preserve the memory of those who hunted in silence beneath the waves. 3 days later, Amberjack approaches Key West under brilliant Florida sunshine. The crew has cleaned the boat, secured equipment, prepared reports. Harper stands on the bridge as Amberjack makes her approach. From a distance, the boat looks like any other guppy submarine returning from routine patrol. Nothing suggests this boat has just completed one of the most successful intelligence-gathering missions of the Cold War. As Amberjack secures to the pier, Harper sees the intelligence courier team waiting. They take possession of the film within minutes. The film will be on an aircraft to Washington within the hour. That evening, Harper and his crew gather for the traditional post-patrol dinner. Steak and lobster. The conversation is subdued. Harper raises a glass. To the crew of Amberjack, to 18 hours of professional excellence, to the mission we will never be able to talk about. The photographs will have significant impact on American intelligence assessment of Soviet ballistic missile submarine capabilities. The intelligence will inform naval force deployments throughout the 1960s. But the value extends beyond immediate intelligence gain. Amberjack's successful tracking demonstrates that guppy-converted diesel-electric submarines retain significant capability. The mission validates the guppy conversion program. The crew will eventually receive a Navy unit commendation, though the citation will reveal nothing specific. Harper will be promoted to captain 2 years later. USS Amberjack will continue serving until decommissioned in 1973, having served 27 years. For Commander Thomas Harper, the 18-hour hunt will be the defining moment of his career. The patience to trail a target for nearly a day without error, the judgment to know when to take risks, the technical knowledge to maximize capabilities while respecting limitations, the leadership to keep his crew focused, the courage to operate in contested waters where detection could mean death. These are the qualities that make submarine commanders successful. These are the skills that win the silent battles of the Cold War. The ocean is vast and dark and unforgiving. It has no memory of the submarines that transit its depths. But the men who fight those battles remember. They remember hours of patient stalking. They remember tension of operating on dwindling battery power. They remember satisfaction of mission success and relief of safe return. USS Amberjack's 18-hour hunt in October 1959 represents one small engagement in a conflict that spanned 4 decades. But for the 23 men who conducted that mission, the mission was anything but small. It was perfect execution of submarine warfare at the highest level of professional competence. This is Cold War Chronicles. If you found this account compelling...
And that was the Cold War. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.